Last fall, Daniel pulled 100 pounds of potatoes out of a patch smaller than my kitchen table. That's one crop. He grows 6 like it, and together they carry his family from one harvest straight through to the next without a single trip to the grocery store for vegetables. Most American gardeners, myself included for 30 years, plant for August and starve by January. I picked these 6 because each one earns a permanent place in an Amish garden for the same reason: reliability when nothing else is growing. We'll count down from 6 to number 1, the single crop Daniel told me an Amish family would never plant a garden without. Stick with me to the end for that, because it surprised me too. Now here's how I narrowed this down. Daniel grows more than 6 things in that garden, but I picked these 6 by one test and one test only, not which crop gives you the biggest haul in August. The test is simpler than that. Does it still feed the family in February when the garden outside is bare dirt and snow? That's the whole criterion. Reliability when nothing else is growing. I want to be straight with you. For years I planted a little of everything and it looked wonderful in summer, but by January the freezer held 3 sad bags of green beans and a jar of homemade salsa. Daniel doesn't garden that way. Daniel plants a lot of the right things. His rule is an empty bed is a wasted bed, and every bed earns its keep into winter. So we're going to count down from 6 to number 1. Each crop earned its spot because it stores and it keeps feeding people in the dead month. And number 1 is the crop Daniel told me an Amish family plants before anything else. It surprised me, and I think it'll surprise you too. Let's get into it. Number 6, storage cabbage, not the loose summer kind you slice for coleslaw and eat the same week. Daniel grows a late variety with a head so dense and heavy you can feel it pull on your wrist when you cut it. He plants it so it matures in the cool weather of fall after the first light frost, because cold tightens those heads up like a fist. And here's why it earns a permanent bed. When the garden outside is bare and frozen, that cabbage is still feeding people. Daniel takes whole heads, wraps them, and lays them in the root cellar where they hold 3 to 4 months without much fuss at all. That's fresh green vegetable on the table in January when nothing is growing for 100 miles. Then Ruth takes part of the crop and does something with it that I think every American gardener has forgotten. She shreds it, salts it, and packs it down in stone crocks to make sauerkraut. Done right, that kraut keeps the whole winter through, and it isn't just about flavor. Daniel told me once that the old families leaned on kraut because it kept them healthy in the cold months long before anybody used the word vitamin. He didn't say it fancy, he just said, in the winter, the kraut keeps you well. Whole heads in the cellar, kraut in the crock. One crop, 2 ways to eat from your own ground in the dead of the year. But while cabbage asks you to wrap it and tend it a little, our next crop asks almost nothing once it's in the ground. Number 5, dry soup bean. Not green beans you pick young and eat in August. I'm talking about beans you walk away from. You let the pods stay right on the vine until they go brown and brittle and rattle when you shake them. Then you shell them out, let them finish drying on a screen, and pour them into glass jars. And here's the part that still amazes me. Stored that way in a cool, dark spot, those beans keep 2 to 3 years, not weeks, years. A jar of dry beans is a jar of food that's just patiently waiting for you to need it. Like the cabbage at number 6, this one barely asks a thing of you once it's planted. You don't fuss, you don't pick every other day, you don't race the clock, you let nature do the drying for free. And what you get is the one thing a winter garden struggles to provide, which is protein. Daniel's family eats plenty of meals through the cold months with no meat in them at all, and the bean is what makes those meals stick to your ribs. A pot of beans, an onion, a little of that stored cabbage, and you got supper that came entirely off your own land in February. Most American gardeners never grow a single dry bean. They're missing the easiest stored protein there is. Now, where beans ask for nothing, our next crop asks for ground nobody else wants. Number 4, winter squash. Hubbard and butternut mostly. This is the crop that earns its keep on land your other vegetables would turn their nose up at. Daniel lets the vines sprawl out across a rough corner along a fence line over ground that's too poor or too far from the hose to plant anything finicky. The squash doesn't care. It runs out there and makes food where nothing else would bother. And then it does the thing that puts it in this list. You cure it for a week or 2 in a warm, dry spot, and after that it stores on a plain basement shelf for 4 to 6 months. No canning, no freezing, no jars. You just set it on a board and walk away, and it waits for you clear into March. Here's the concrete part. One big Hubbard squash is not a side dish. It's the size of a small dog, and a single one can feed a family across several meals deep into late winter. That's real calories, real density, sitting on a shelf in the cold months with no electricity and no work. Daniel keeps a row of them lined up down in the cellar like firewood, and he eats his way down the line from one end of winter to the other. When I first saw it, I thought of all the squash I'd let rot on the vine over the years because I didn't know it would keep. I'd grown food and then wasted it every single fall. The squash carries you on calories, but our next crop carries you on something sweeter, and it does it by hiding all winter in a box of sand. Number 3, carrots. I'll be honest with you, I grew carrots for years and treated them like a summer crop. You pull them, you eat them, you're done by September. Then Ruth showed me what the Amish do, and I couldn't believe I'd never thought of it. She lifts her carrots in late fall after the frosts have come, brushes off the dirt, and layers them in wooden boxes packed with damp sand, root after root, never touching. Those boxes go down into the cool dark of the root cellar, and the carrots stay crisp and sweet, just like the day she pulled them, clear into March. The sand is the whole trick. It holds just enough moisture to keep the carrots from going limp, and it keeps each one separated so a bad one can't spoil its neighbor. Ruth has been doing it this way her whole married life, the way her mother did before her, and here's the detail that surprised me most. Carrots actually get sweeter after a hard frost. The plant turns its starch into sugar to protect itself from the cold, so the carrot Ruth pulls in November tastes better than the one I pull in August. Then the sand holds that sweetness for months. A box of carrots is a box of fresh, crunchy, sweet vegetable in the middle of winter with no canning and no power. Now the carrots hold into March, and that's a long time, but the crop sitting at number one stores even longer than that, and it's not what you'd expect. Before we get there, though, there's the one that delivers on the promise I made you at the very start. Number two, potatoes. This is the crop from the opening. The 100 pounds out of a patch smaller than my kitchen table. Let me tell you exactly how Daniel does it, because for 30 years, I did it the hard way and got a fraction of the result. Here's my old method. I dig a long trench, drop in my seed potatoes, cover them with dirt, and hope for the best. Hill them up once or twice with a hoe over the summer, and I'd get maybe a pound or two per plant if the season was kind. The Amish way is completely different, and it takes less digging, not more. Daniel plants in a small bed, roughly 4 feet by 4 feet. That's 16 square feet, smaller than a card table. He sets his seed potatoes right on loosened ground, and then instead of burying them in soil, he buries them in straw. As the plants grow up through it, he keeps piling more straw on, deeper and deeper all season long, so the potatoes form up and down through that loose mulch instead of fighting through heavy clay. And come fall, he doesn't dig with a fork and spear half of them like I used to. He just pulls the straw back with his hands and picks the potatoes up off the ground like eggs. Last fall, out of that one little 4x4 bed, Daniel pulled 100 pounds. 100 pounds from a patch you could step across in a single stride. I stood there doing the math and feeling foolish about all the wasted ground I'd given to potatoes over 3 decades. Then those potatoes go down into the root cellar, kept dark and cool, and they feed the family all the way through April. They're the calorie backbone of the whole winter, the thing that fills the plate behind everything else. Daniel's been growing them like this for 50 years. His father grew them the same way before him. It's not a trick or a secret, it's just patient, and it just works, and it sits at number 2 on this list because nearly every meal in that house leans on it from one harvest to the next. But here's the part that genuinely stopped me when Daniel said it. The crop at number 1, the one he told me an Amish family plants before anything else, is not a calorie crop at all. It won't fill your belly the way these potatoes do. And that's exactly why it surprised me. Before I tell you what it is, I want to stop here for a second, because none of these 6 crops carry a family through winter if the pests get them first. Cabbage worms, squash bugs, Colorado potato beetles, they can erase the whole harvest before it ever reaches the cellar. If you're tired of fighting the same pests every single season and you're ready for a system that actually prevents them instead of a tip you have to keep repeating, that's exactly what I put in my book, The 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. Chapter 8 goes crop by crop of the cabbage worms, the squash bugs, the potato beetles, the very crops sitting on this list. It's $17 at backyardbillbooks.com. If you're watching on your TV, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. If you're already on your phone or laptop, the link is right down in the description. Take your time finding it. I'll be right here when you get back. And finally, the one Daniel told me an Amish family plants before anything else. Number 1, the onion. I'll be honest with you. When I asked Daniel which single crop he'd plant first if he could only plant one, I expected him to say potatoes, maybe squash, something that fills a belly in February. He didn't. He said onions. And I just stood there for a second because an onion is barely a calorie. Nobody lives on onions. So I asked him why. What he told me changed how I thought about my whole winter pantry. He said, Bill, a cellar full of potatoes and squash you can't stand the taste of is a cellar full of nothing. That's the rule. The onion isn't down there to fill you up. It's down there to make everything else worth eating. A pot of stored potatoes and dried beans with nothing in it is a sad supper. The same pot with an onion fried into the bottom of it is a meal a family's glad to sit down to night after night all winter long. And here's the part I'd missed for 30 years. Onions store as well as anything in that cellar. Daniel pulls them in late summer, then lays them out somewhere dry and airy for a couple of weeks to cure until the necks tighten and the skins go papery. After that, he braids them by the tops or hangs them in mesh bags down in the cool, and they keep 6 months or more without complaint. They become the flavor base under every soup, every stew, every pan of fried potatoes from November straight through to spring, and that's exactly why it earns the top spot. Back at the start, I told you these 6 crops all made the list for one reason: reliability when nothing else is growing. But reliability reliability isn't only about calories that keep you alive. It's about the crop that keeps a family willing to eat from their own ground all winter without ever once longing for the grocery store. The onion is the one that does that. Daniel was right. It surprised me too. Before I let you go, I want to come back to one thing. Growing these 6 crops is only half the system. The other half is storing them right, so they actually last all the way to the next harvest. And that's how Daniel and Ruth go a whole winter without a single grocery run for vegetables. That storage side is chapter 10 of the book, Ruth's Root Cellar and Pudding By. It's the same damp sand carrots and the same cool dark cellar I showed you on this list, laid out step by step. If you want to eat from your own ground all year instead of riding the grocery treadmill, that's where to start. It's all at backyardbuildbooks.com. Go ahead and scan that QR code if you're on the big screen, or tap the link in the description if you got your phone in your hand. No rush at all. Pause this and pull it up, and I'll wait right here for you. So those are the 6 crops that carry Daniel's family from one harvest straight through to the next. Storage cabbage, dry soup beans, winter squash, carrots, potatoes, and the onion at number 1. In a few hundred Amish gardens across Lancaster County right now, this isn't a special project. It's just how the year gets planned. You don't have to do all 6 this year. Pick one storage crop, give it a permanent bed, and see what your cellar looks like come February. Drop a note in the comments and tell me which of the 6 you'd plant first, huh? I read them. And if you want to see how Daniel pulls 100 pounds of potatoes out of 4 square feet, I've got a whole video on just that one. I'll see you in the next one.